The Belonger, a novel, written by Kathleen Mehuron, and narrated by Kathleen Hewitt. Chapter 34. By the time Montez returned to the hospital, Nurse Audrey had already come in and said Byron should try to nap before dinner. The flaming redness in his eyes was a dead giveaway that he was exhausted. The contrast of the color against his white dressing and attire made it look even more dramatic. Holly hated that she couldn't help him more. Looking back, it had been easier when he was a small child, and she could take him in her arms and dry his tears. Now she felt awkward and ill-equipped to comfort him. He got angry with her when she overstepped. She would have loved to sleep overnight in the chair by his bedside, but she knew he would never allow it now that he was grown. He would have to be fully unconscious to let it happen. So there was nothing to do but get through the night and get back to him as soon as the sun came up. Before she and Montez left, Montez gently put his hand on Byron's shoulder and locked eyes with his boy. "I promise you, my son, if it takes every penny I have left in this world, I will be here before they take you into surgery," he said solemnly. Byron nodded and cast his gaze down. "I cost you a lot already. I'm sorry, Dad." Byron choked up, which made Holly choke up too. She put on a fake cheerful voice to try to smooth over the moment. "Try to get some sleep tonight, honey. We'll see you in the morning." She paraded out of the room before she could change her mind or started to bawl. Outside the room, she gasped. How had this happened? How had they gotten here? And is he going to be okay? The 2 flights of stairs down were unbearably stuffy. Getting to the lobby was a huge relief. Holly pulled at the fabric of her shirt under her arms and fanned herself. Waiting outside the glass-paned main entrance was a cab. Holly pointed to it. "Is that for us?" Montez nodded and led the way to the car. It was clear he'd kept the same driver, whose name turned out to be Charlie, all afternoon, because as soon as they got in, the 2 men started talking about all the information they had gathered during their exploration that day. Charlie looked in the rearview mirror at Holly and pointed to Montez with his thumb. "This is the guy you want during an emergency," he said. "He knows how to get things done." Montez puffed up his chest, a smug smile on his face. He looked ridiculous. Holly stubbornly stared Montez square in the eye and said, "I really wouldn't know. I've never been with him in an emergency. After the fact, yes, but I usually manage the difficult moments of my life on my own." Montez's inflated posture collapsed, and he let out a long exhale. Holly felt profoundly satisfied. She knew she was being a bit mean, but at the moment she didn't care. They remained uncomfortably quiet until the cab pulled up under the massive portico of the luxurious Many Stars Beach Resort. Holly was certain Montez's choice was meant to impress her, and she raised her eyebrows at him pointedly. It's rated for a Category 5 hurricane," he stammered. "They are doing some things by lamplight right now, but they have backup generators. The bar and restaurant are up and running." They thanked Charles and headed inside. They made straight for the elevators once they entered the lobby, but the concierge spotted them and stepped forward. "Mr. Curry, I'm glad to see you made it back in one piece." He nodded his head in Holly's direction. "Mrs. Curry?" "My name is Miss Walker." She was taken aback by the edge of her voice. "I am just so sick of this. I am a Ms. or Miss, never a Mrs." But what she was feeling toward Montez wasn't this concierge's fault. She put her hand out and smiled as she shook his. "Holly Walker." He seemed very concerned. "How is your son?" She was surprised he knew about Byron. Montez must have talked to him about it. "We think he'll be fine. We still have to get through surgery tomorrow." He nodded solemnly. "I see. Well, I'm so sorry about the accident. I wish you the best, and I hope you enjoy your room. Welcome to Many Stars." He gestured to both of them when he said, "Your room." singular. Holly contemplated the meaning of it. As Holly had suspected, Montez had only reserved one bedroom, albeit a quite large room with its own separate living room. It was at the exact moment she entered it that she understood why Anthony had given her $500 when she left. They hadn't been able to find her wallet or passport anywhere after the storm, which meant she didn't have any identification with her. She supposed she was lucky to have the few clothes she did in her bag, but without a way to prove her identity, she was dependent on Montez right now for almost everything. An uncomfortable feeling. Thankfully, there were 2 queen-size beds. One was piled high with women's clothing, including 2 cruise-style dresses of a light gauzy fabric and 5 sets of exquisite bras and panties. Holly frowned. Montez caught her reaction. "I may have gone overboard on the lingerie," he admitted. She continued her inspection of the bed's contents. There were capri pants and shorts with coordinating tops, and 3 sleep sets that looked so comfortable she wanted to get into one now and fall into a deep slumber immediately. A uniformed woman appeared at the door of what turned out to be a bathroom and jacuzzi suite. "Madame," she said, "when you're ready." Without another word, she disappeared again. Arg! Holly was dumbfounded by the whole scene. Montez went to the door the attendant had just retreated from and said, "Give us a minute." He then opened the glass terrace door and motioned her outside. The view was spectacular. She couldn't help but appreciate that they were going to have quite the sunset. He took both of her hands in his, bent his head, and gazed at her through his lush lashes. "I was wrong. I never should have let Byron up on the roof. It's a decision I will live with for the rest of my life." Holly nodded. Though she held her chin up, her eyes were downcast. She listened. "He is a man now, and he looks to me to teach him how to be a good one. I respected that he wanted to help my aunt and uncle. But letting him take a risk like that is not something I would do again." "All right." Her body relaxed into a position that was more at ease. "What I question, looking back, is whether I did it because it was more fun visiting Fabienne's family." He waved one hand around in the air and shook his head. "Or because Byron wanted me to agree with him that he should climb up there. I'll just say it. I'm ashamed. You can say many things about me, Holly, but you know I love my son." She nodded. "I know you do, Montez. It's the only reason I didn't kick your ass a long time ago." He sighed. "Or stab me in the throat." She honestly didn't know how to respond. "How on earth do you know about that?" She chewed on the cuticle of one of her index fingers. "Byron told me when you went to use the ladies' room. You should never have been put in that position. It's another reason I feel ashamed. I know I let you down. We should have stuck together, as a family. I'm just trying to make up for it now." Holly went over to the railing and surveyed the yard and the patio. The trees were pretty beaten up. A full crew was out clearing the debris and garbage in the heat and humidity. Any beach and patio furniture they might have had was gone, although Holly didn't know if it had been blown away or simply put in storage. Nestor had dredged the beach, too. It wasn't nearly as wide as it had been. The drop-off down to the white sand was now quite steep. "What's the maid for?" she asked him with a resigned sigh. "Her name is Laurette. She's a masseuse and hairstylist. I thought it would be a nice treat for you to have a massage, take a bath, and get your hair done before dinner." Holly sat down on the end of one of the chaise lounges. She was still stewing. "Wow. I don't know whether to say thank you or screw you." She stroked the fabric of the cushion she was now reclining on. It was cool to the touch, though the texture was rich. "You can decide afterward," he chuckled. "We have dinner reservations at 6:45, so you better get started." He winked at her, and went back inside. "Madame is ready to begin," he called out to Laurette. "Again with the madame! Pretty presumptuous, Montez." Chapter 35. With Laurette's help, Holly looked so flawless that evening she could have walked a red carpet event and blended right in. She wore one of the long dresses Montez had purchased for her, a pale lavender number. Though the cut of it was elegant, its gauzy fabric made it seem more casual. This was some comfort, as she doubted anyone else would, or could, be dressed to the nines right after the storm. When Laurette brought her 3 pairs of shoes to choose from, she was astonished to find they were a perfect fit. How on earth? Laurette convinced her to wear the pair of heeled, but not too high-heeled, sandals. She also strung a long, slinky silver necklace around Holly's neck and handed her a matching set of earrings to put in her ears. The woven chains on the studs swung low and danced every time she moved her head. Laurette tucked a final blonde tendril into Holly's upswept hair and said, "Exquis." They heard a knock at the door. Laurette answered as Holly fussed with her makeup in the mirror and came back in with a sealed envelope. Holly broke the seal on the hotel stationery with one finger and read the note inside. "Meet me in the bar. I've gotten a head start." At this, she smiled. She was very much looking forward to a drink. Holly offered Laurette a $20 bill as a tip, but she shooed the money away. With a confident smile, she said, "It has all been taken care of, madame." Holly began to correct her. Madame was... oh, never mind. They exited together and rode the elevator down to the ground floor. Laurette hung back at the archway that led from the foyer to the bar. She told Holly she wanted to see Montez's reaction. Holly couldn't help but notice that he immediately stood up as she entered the room. He was absolutely stunning in his slim-cut black European suit. Then again, she realized, all decked out like this, she was a bit of a head-turner herself. She was annoyed to see that Montez was scanning everyone else in the room but her, observing other men's reactions to her entrance instead of appreciating her himself. And the men were indeed looking. When she was a much younger woman, this kind of attention would have made her feel uncomfortable. But when a man in the corner called out, "Hey, beautiful, after this nightmare you sure are a sight for sore eyes," she turned to him and smiled from ear to ear. The maitre d' appeared at Montez's side, carrying 2 menus. As Holly approached, he swept his arm out to indicate he was leading them to their table. They were seated on the oceanside edge of the main deck of the outdoor restaurant. The pounding waves immediately put her into a relaxed state of mind. Before the hurricane savaged it, the once lush landscaping had probably provided the feeling of sitting down in a garden. At this point, she was just grateful the sky was clear, and the resort had been able to clear enough wind-blown sand out of the way to set some tables out. Fluffy clouds streamed across the sky. Holly knew they would soon catch the changing light, and colors would shift from oranges to pinks to purples, every hue melding as time passed and the breeze blew. It would be quite a show. After their waiter pushed in her chair, he told Montez, "I will bring the champagne immediately." When it was just the 2 of them, Montez scanned her up and down. "I knew lavender was your color the minute I laid eyes on that dress. You look wonderful." He lifted one of her hands and brought it to his lips. She hated to admit that he could still make her tingle all the way down to her toes. She cocked her head to one side. "Yeah, well, you really went all out. Anyone would look glamorous after the treatment I got today. I'm not keeping this jewelry, by the way. It's too much. I wouldn't want to feel indebted." Montez waved her comment away as if none of it mattered. "You deserve it, and more," he told her in a sincere voice. A tall wine glass was set before her, and the maitre d' poured the cold, sparkling wine. Montez raised his glass to her. To better times ahead. As she clinked the rim of her stemware against his, she joked, I don't see how things could get any better than this. She let out a feminine titter that was unlike her. Remember when we were young and had to make picnics to go out on a date? We couldn't afford to go out to eat. Now look at us. Yes, God is good. We've done very well. Very well. And more importantly, our son lived through his fall. In fact, he raised his glass to her again and stood. He caught the attention of the diners at the other 3 tables outside, and they all held their glasses up. We should give praise tonight that we lived through the historic Hurricane Nestor, he shouted. It was clear the crowd agreed with him as they quietly toasted. Holly and Montez sipped their drink and watched the giant orange ball that was the sun sink quickly into the sea. Not a single voice interrupted its last light as it dipped over the horizon. A flutter of activity began immediately. However, the second it fully dropped, a 3-piece band started to play a soft instrumental song, and staff ran to light torches. Montez smiled the way only he could. So blinding, Holly thought it would melt anyone's heart. You made the picnics back then, he reminded her, and I thank you for it. I merely came along for the ride. You were always a great cook. The waiter brought them a delicately flavored appetizer of shrimp ceviche. It had been marinated in exactly enough lime juice and spice. By the time they'd finished their second course of niçoise salads, the bottle of champagne was empty. Montez asked for the wine list and ordered without consulting her. I don't get a say? Holly objected. If I don't know what you like by now, he said, I never will. Holly had to admit when the food came that the grapefruit hint in her Sauvignon Blanc paired perfectly with her seafood entree. The music the band was playing had picked up in tempo. They were now doing soft swing ballads, and 2 other musicians, a sax player and a female vocalist, were setting up to join them. By the time the waiter came to take away their dinner plates, Holly was more than content. Shall I put the charges on your room, sir? Montez, watching the band, didn't bother to look up at him as he said, That would be wonderful. A big bear of a man approached their table. Bonsoir, monsieur et madame. Holly's face winced ever so slightly. I am the master mixologist, Henri. He let out a jolly laugh. I understand you are celebrating tonight. Are we? Yes, we are, Montez said with certainty. In that spirit, may I make you one of my signature cocktails? The dancing is about to begin. Holly widened her questioning eyes at Montez. She knew the following day would be hard, and she didn't want to risk a hangover, yet she was enjoying cutting loose from all the fear and worry they had been living with for the last few days. Montez nodded. With a flourish, Henri produced 2 lists of drinks and put one in front of each of them. Let the dancing commence and the party begin, the singer said into her microphone. What shall we say about tonight? Nestor didn't win. We are down, but not out, Mr. Hurricane. We made it, and now we are going to switch things up and play some more contemporary songs. If you'd like to make a request, we have paper and pencils at the foot of the stage. We love a challenge. A couple of times during each set of music, we will try to do one of your suggestions. It may not wind up perfect, but it's always fun. The drummer banged his drumsticks together 4 times, and they took off in a terrific rendition of the Eurythmics' Sweet Dreams. The next song they played was Dion's early 60s classic, Runaround Sue. A group of white-haired tourists got up to Jitterbug, and the other patrons applauded them when the song ended. As the ensemble seamlessly started a lively cover that got many more people out on the floor, Montez yelled into Holly's ear, "Let's go." Holly didn't have to be asked twice. She was already out on the floor when Montez was barely up from the table. She turned to watch him. Just the way he moved his shoulders was a marvel, but it made her remember the night she'd danced with Anthony. He didn't have great rhythm, but his full attention had been on her. Anthony made it into a high form of communication, whereas Montez seemed to revel in being in the spotlight. After a couple of songs, Holly told Montez, "I need a sip of water." She went over to their table and did drink some water, but she also tasted her cocktail. Delicious. The band hardly wasted a minute. They appeared to be having a great time, and the audience was clearly in a mood to have some fun. A chord progression from the iconic album Thriller began. She'd long forgotten she and Montez both knew how to moonwalk to Billie Jean. They brought the house down, and as soon as the next song began, 2 younger girls pulled Montez away from Holly to dance with him. Apparently, they were impressed. She didn't have a moment to be resentful, as a man her age cut in to be her partner. Within the hour, the group on the dance floor reminded her of Friday nights on Grand Turk at Salinas. As an audience, they were all in it together. Everyone rotated around the space, trying to mingle and to dance with everybody. Perhaps the best moment of the night was when Holly ended up with a female partner in her 80s. The old lady was dolled up in a pink spangly mini dress, and she shook those bangles around like someone half her age. By the time Holly and Montez stumbled up to their room later that night, she was giddy. She'd made new friends, and she'd felt like a celebrity on the dance floor, pretty and funny. "I don't know when I've had so much fun." She walked into their hotel room on unsteady legs. She found that someone had cleared the clothing off what she considered to be her bed, and also turned it down, and was grateful for it. "Montez," she announced, "I am going to sleep." Without any hesitation, she grabbed a nightgown and went into the bathroom to take her hair down and wash her face. When she crawled into the crisp white sheets, Anthony's was the face she saw before she drifted off. Chapter 36. About 3 o'clock in the morning, Holly woke up parched. Although the drapes were closed, moonlight streamed in around the edges, and every time the breeze gusted and blew them up, it lit the room. She reached around to find her water bottle on the bedside table and unscrewed the top. Out of the darkness, a voice said, "I'm already awake." "Hey," she said in a groan. "There's some aspirin in the bathroom. Do you want me to get it for you?" "Thanks, I'm okay. Just thirsty." "I can't sleep," Montez said. "I've been lying here thinking about the surgery. It sounds like it will be awful. Do you want to go out on the terrace with me and sit?" Holly thought about it. Although the bed was extremely comfortable, there wasn't enough power from the hotel generators to run the air conditioners in the bedrooms. And since their room only had windows across one wall, the cross breeze wasn't strong either. Inside the room, they were stuck with the heat and humidity. "That sounds like a good idea," she said. She grabbed the light throw folded on the end of her bed and draped it over herself as she settled into one of the cushioned chaise lounges outside. Montez did the same. He even brought a pillow out with him. "What time is it?" she asked. 3:15. "Well, that's it for us then. We'll never fall back asleep before daybreak." Holly pulled the throw up around her neck, for thankfully the trade winds were strong outside. The feel of the knit fabric against her skin was luxurious. "Is this cashmere?" "It has to be." "How much did this room cost anyway?" "I'd be too embarrassed to say. Even with the storm, it's not cheap." Though it was still pretty dark, she could make out his wide smile. Holly giggled. "The room, the clothes, the jewelry?" "After all we've been through, and I don't just mean Nestor, we've come a long way in this life. We deserve it. You deserve it." Holly was silent for a time. When she opened her mouth again, she couldn't help saying, "I've thought since you landed in that helicopter to get me that you were trying to impress me. To seduce me, if you want to know the truth." He laughed out loud and clapped his hands. Of course I was. What man wouldn't try? Holly was relieved they were chatting honestly. I told you on the plane that I've made a terrible mistake all these years. I don't know what I was thinking, Holly. Maybe many young men think someone better is bound to come along. I don't know if you can, but I hope you will forgive me. That doesn't change what happened. Still, she was grateful to hear him say it. I was bitter for many years, but so much time has passed. I forgive you. They reached out from their chairs and clasped hands for several seconds. Holly gave his hand a squeeze and was the one to let go. I had a wonderful time last night, thank you. Let's hang out here for a while. It's cool. Then we can both shower and get ready to head to the hospital. I can't wait to see Byron again. She rolled over on her side, enjoying the sensation of the knit cover sliding against her legs. Montez took a swig from his water bottle. The surgery's scheduled for 8. I don't think going at 6 is too early. He's probably nervous. I know I am, Holly said. They screw metal plates into the bones, and then we have to bring him back to have them taken out? It sounds painful. She cocked an ear in Montez's direction. Although she couldn't see him clearly in the moonlight, she knew he was crying. What is it? She whispered. She could make out him wiping his eyes with his expensive throw, and she heard him sniffling. Byron getting hurt. I feel like God is punishing me. Holly drew her knees up to her chest and wrapped her arms around them. For what? For leaving you two. For acting like a part-time father was as good as a full-time one. I should have been there for the two of you all along. Holly didn't say anything. Her mind spiraled through the history of their relationship. She remembered well that back then Montez hadn't thought she was good enough for him. It still hurt her deeply. She'd known she wasn't like the girls he'd grown up with, but in the beginning he'd seemed to really like her. They'd had a whirlwind of a sexual affair that had sent her head over heels, only to be quickly followed by persistent judgment and criticism. It wasn't long before he decided he didn't approve of how she drank and smoked. He pressed her to join a church with him, though she'd never had much religious affiliation and felt uncomfortable about the idea. More than anything, he said he was mystified that she was on her own when she was still so young. He never came out and said so, but he seemed to blame her for the estrangement from her parents, which was outright abandonment. This was especially painful, for while Holly was sure that being an emancipated minor had led her to make some bad decisions, she was proud of herself for working her way through the last few years of high school. And getting through college had been a real challenge as well, what with the baby and all. When she'd unexpectedly conceived Byron, Montez had been clear they would never be together as a nuclear family. He'd always pledged his help, as had Corliss and Sanford. Yet the truth was, except for 2 weeks at Christmas and in the summer, and the small but steady check that came in the mail, Holly had raised Byron Curry on her own. And that was the crux of the matter. Toby and Sally Trombley had done as much as they could to help, especially with babysitting. But for the most part, the burdens had sat squarely on her shoulders because Montez had lived an ocean away. Day was just dawning when Holly stood and told Montez, I'm going first. I've got to wash all this hairspray out of my hair. The surgeon walked in wearing blue scrubs. He pulled off his face mask and told them, He did great, but his recovery is going to take time. Really bad breaks. We've got to keep the pain under control for a few days, and then you can bring him home. Holly broke out in a cold sweat. She wondered how on earth she would get him back home in this condition. Byron and I have the Roseate house on Grand Turk. The doctor's eyes crinkled warmly. And the sand dollar too? You buy it from Teddy? We did, she said. Byron and I did, and we were there when Nestor hit. It's in pretty rough shape. Montez fiddled with his cell phone, although he knew as well as anyone there wouldn't be any reception for many weeks. "He can come stay with me," he said. "I'll rent something." "Montez," Holly brayed. His eyes shot up to hers, and she held his gaze for longer than seemed possible. She was not about to entrust her son to anyone else. "All right, little mummy, I get it." He stood and came over to give her a hug. As he held her, he said, "You stay here with Byron. I'll fly to Grand Turk and see if I can't get a couple of rooms at your place habitable. Then we'll fly you both over." Holly's relief was so profound she could hardly breathe.